Okay, welcome everybody to our Major Impact Awards info session. My name is Jacob Falkenberg, and I'm the Communications and Member Services Director at Venture Portland. And the Major Impact Awards, for those of you who don't know, were made possible by funding that Venture Portland received from the American Rescue Plan Act. So this is one-time funding specifically geared towards pandemic relief. So this allowed us to create a brand new grants program last year in summer of 2023, which we launched. So we were able to award $250,000 in grants in 2023. And then this cycle in 2024 is our last and final cycle for these grants, where we will be awarding another $250,000. So we tried to keep things pretty similar to last year, but there are a couple of changes, and I know there's some folks who are new to the process, so I want to go through the application, the guidelines, an example of a successful project from last year, and answer any questions that you might have as you're kind of working with your boards to plan applications for your district. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is share my screen and just go through the application with everybody right now. Okay, so can everybody see my screen? Okay, I'm seeing nods, that's good. So if you don't have the application already, you can download it on our website, ventureportland.org. Just navigate to the homepage and click on this programs button at the top. And then if you go to the grants section on the left here, that'll take you to the grants page of our website. And just scroll down and you'll see Major Impact Awards here at the bottom. And we've got the application in two different formats, PDF and Doc. So you can open that with Microsoft Word or Google Docs. And the Doc format is actually really helpful because you can enter answers to the questions under each question, and it keeps everything in the application format, which we always recommend because it helps the grants committee kind of follow along. And when all the applications look the same, it's a lot easier for them to tell if you've answered every question, if there's anything missing, that sort of thing. So we highly recommend using the doc format, but if PDF is easier for you, that's available as well. And then this last option here at the bottom is the grant evaluation criteria. So this isn't something that you need to worry about filling out. This is just information for you that is given to the grants committee that they kind of take into consideration when they are reviewing all of the applications. So each grants committee member reviews every application that's submitted and scores it using this evaluation criteria. So it just gives you a better idea of what's going through their heads as they're reading each question. So for today, we're going to open up the PDF application and guidelines. And this will take us to the cover page, which is kind of just the nuts and bolts of where you're putting in all the different pieces of how much your district is requesting, which project type you're going to be applying for, which we'll go over in just a bit, the project name, the name of the district, the contact information for the project lead and the district president, all pretty simple stuff here, but you want to make sure that you fill all of this out. And also, this is one of the reasons why you don't want to wait until the last minute to submit your application, because you do need to get signatures on this page from the business district president and treasurer. So sometimes, people will wait until the day of the deadline to get those signatures, and it turns out one of those people is on vacation, and we've had to turn away certain applicants that weren't able to get those signatures because that means the application is incomplete. So we won't be accepting any incomplete applications. So it definitely helps to turn it in early, and then that way I can look over it and make sure that there's no pieces missing. And if there are pieces missing, you have time to go and fill those in. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the guidelines for this year's Major Impact Awards. So once again, we have $250,000 to award, and applicants may apply for projects ranging from $25,000 to $50,000. So that means we're going to be able to give somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 awards out this round. And that means it's going to be highly competitive. So you want to make sure to really think about the details that you're putting into the application, making sure to include some additional information that might make the application more compelling and easier to understand for the grants committee. These projects are for things happening between August of 2024 and July of 2025. So these should be about a year long at the most, wrapping up in July of 2025. So kind of keep that in mind as you're kind of brainstorming. You don't want to do anything that's going to be too long-term. These grants are really meant to have an impact in the short term for your district. And of course, applications are due no later than July 12th, 2024. So they aren't necessarily, you don't have to turn it in on that day. I would always encourage you to turn it in before then, but at the very latest, July 12th, 2024. Otherwise, we cannot accept the application. Okay, so for these projects, there are 3 different types of projects that applicants can apply for. And some of these may look familiar because these some of them are similar to the spring and fall grants that we offer, that we've been offering for many, many years now, but they're more kind of beefed up versions of those. So the first type of project your district can apply for is the district infrastructure category. So this is semi-permanent and permanent fixtures or physical improvements to the streetscape in your district that just make it a more enjoyable place for people to visit, and maybe incentivize them to come and visit and spend time and promote the district. So these could be public art, signage and fixtures, public spaces for people to congregate. So plazas and pocket parks, or other things that make the area more accessible. So bike racks, lighting improvements, crosswalk improvements, that sort of thing. A good example of a district infrastructure project would be the giant Paul Bunyan statue in Kenton. So that's a landmark that everybody can kind of relate to that district. It helps to reinforce the identity of the Kenton Business District, and it draws in visitors. You know, people will come to take pictures with Paul, post that on social media, and when people visit, they're supporting the businesses in the district. When they post on social media, they're promoting the district. These are the type of things to kind of keep in mind. Think big for these projects, something that's really going to draw somebody in. The second type of project you can apply for is business district staff. So this would be hiring a full-time or near full-time person for the period of 1 year to assist your district with event planning, grant writing, maintaining your membership database, implementing a membership campaign, communications, so newsletters, social media, and marketing and promotion efforts. So if your district already has somebody doing some of this stuff, it can be used to hire a new person, or it can be used to bump up their time to full-time if they're a part-time person. New this year, we've also added the ability to hire DEI consultants. So this is diversity, equity, and inclusion consultants that specialize in helping districts to diversify their boards, diversify their membership, create equitable programming, and make their operations more equitable. So we have had a couple of districts that have been doing this work already, but we want to make this more accessible for more districts because it's extremely important and definitely a priority for Venture Portland. So if your district is interested in doing this work, this would be a great way to fund that. And finally, the third type of project that your district can apply for is a livability project. So this is anything that addresses public safety, the environmental quality of the district. It just makes the district more of a community-friendly place. Include accessibility, aesthetics. So it can be, think about things like adding garbage cans or garbage service to the district, litter cleanups, graffiti abatement, or security services patrolling the district on behalf of the businesses. Okay, so those are the 3 different types of projects. Let's take a look at some of the other requirements for applicants. So all applicants must be currently in compliance with their bylaws. So you may have seen on the very first page where the president has to sign. They also have to sign off saying the district is currently in compliance with their bylaws. That means you have all the minimum number of board members needed to operate, along with all the other things that go on with your bylaws. So make sure that your district is in compliance with their bylaws. And then you also must have general liability insurance, which I'm assuming all districts do, but if you are awarded a grant, you should add Venture Portland as an additionally insured on your general liability insurance. The projects must have a set deadline. So at the very latest, that's going to be July of 2025. And if the project is not completed by that deadline, the funds must be returned to Venture Portland within 2 weeks. So returned in full. We're not in the business of partially funding projects. If you receive an award and it turns out that you can't complete the project for whatever reason, make sure you're in communication with us, and don't go ahead and start spending those funds on other things. You may need to return those funds if you're not able to complete the project you initially were awarded the funds for. And then, again, if you complete the project but you haven't fully spent the award, you will need to return the remaining funds as well. So something to keep in mind, once it's done and you've submitted your receipts and your report, and there's still funds left over, those remaining funds will need to be returned so we can add those to a future grant cycle. All grantees must recognize Venture Portland and Prosper Portland as the funders. So Prosper Portland manages Venture Portland's contract, and they were a big part of helping us secure these funds. So in addition to Venture Portland's logo, which I can provide, you'll also want to attach Prosper Portland's logo to any printed materials or any shout outs on social media, that sort of thing. Make sure that both Venture Portland and Prosper Portland are recognized in communications about your project. You also must be current member business associations of Venture Portland. So last year there was some confusion where we had some individual businesses applying for grants. These grants are only available to business associations in Portland, and those business associations must be members of Venture Portland. So if you're not a member, if your district is not a member, you can sign up via our website. If you're not sure if you're a member, just reach out to me, I can tell you. But our membership is on an annual basis. So it starts January 1st, ends December 31st. So if your district hasn't paid as of January 1st, 2024, you'll need to do so before applying. If you're awarded a major impact grant in 2023 and you want to apply again, at this point, you should have expended at least 80% of your award in order to apply in 2024. If you haven't, you're ineligible, and you'll want to reach out to me to kind of give me a project update where you're at, so I can inform the grants committee and we can kind of talk about what the next steps might be there. And then finally, if you have any other Venture Portland grants in progress, they must be in good standing as well. So that's our spring and fall cycle. If you have an award that's currently outstanding, you want to make sure that you're not beyond the due date on that. And again, I can kind of give you more information on that because I track all that information. And then you'll find our equity statement there. And then on the next page is the actual application. So these are the questions that you'll need to fill out and complete by July 12th. So the first question, and probably the most important question, is the detailed description of the project. So that's going to be all the details about what you're doing, how you're preparing to do it, why are you doing it? What's the current state of the district that brought you to this point? Why is this project appropriate and needed at this time? What do you hope to achieve through this project? And you really want to fill this question out as if you're talking to somebody who has no idea anything about your district. So that goes for the built form of your district, where the district is, what your district is currently struggling with, what your district has achieved in the past, because the grants committee members may not be familiar. So you want to give as many details as possible, as much background information and context as possible as to why this project is going to make an impact for the district businesses. And then question 2, how do you define success for the project? So this is coming up with some quantifiable goals that you want to work towards. And by quantifiable, I mean, you want to have specific numbers attached to those goals. So this could be, raising X amount of dollars, or increasing business district membership by a certain percentage. It could be increasing, your social media following by a certain percentage, foot traffic in the district. So try to come up with some numbers. You may not have done similar projects in the past, but just coming up with a rough idea of what are you working towards and how are you going to know if you're successful once the project is completed. Then question 3 is asking about a timeline of project activities. So this can just be a bulleted list of a month-by-month plan of what you plan to do to get the project done on time. And that also shows the grants committee that you've kind of fully thought out all the different components and pieces of the project, from getting estimates on costs to certain things, talking about permitting with certain bureaus, and the feasibility of the project itself, working with contractors and anything that might be a part of the project. You want to make sure that you have a specific month that's going to happen. And that also includes a follow-up, celebrating the success of the project and actually filling out the project report and evaluation. Question 4 is just, how do you see the project enhancing the district in the long term? So the projects that we're really focused on funding here are meant to be completed in the short term, but have a lasting impact. So thinking about that Paul Bunyan, that's been up since the 50s or 60s or whenever, and it's still continuing to have an impact on the district. So how do you see this project enhancing the district in the long term? And then question 5, just asking a little bit of information about the project lead. Who's that person? What makes them qualified to lead the project, and what support are they going to have to help them make the project successful? So is that coming from the board? Is that coming from contractors that you're hiring? What resources do you have at their disposal? Question 6 talks about diversity, equity, inclusion. So what specific processes or steps is your district taking during this project to engage with diverse communities during the project? So that could be intentional purchasing, purchasing from a BIPOC-owned business or working with a BIPOC contractor. It could be your marketing strategy. How are you reaching out to diverse communities? Are you advertising about whatever you're doing in a specific publication or website that caters to diverse communities? Are you partnering with other organizations that work with diverse communities? So just kind of keeping that in mind. It's going to apply to some projects more than others, but you want to be thoughtful on this one because it is a priority for our organization. Question 7 is just talking about previous projects that your district has completed that show that you're able to successfully achieve goals and work towards larger projects. So this could be a previously Venture Portland funded project or a non-Venture Portland funded project that your district hangs their hat on as something that they're very proud of, that shows that they're able to get things done. Question 8 is the budget template. So that's going to be on the next page. So we'll skip that for now. And then question 9 is specifically for our funders. So this question isn't going to be scored, but our funder did want this us to collect this information. This just has to do with the COVID-19 pandemic, because these funds are COVID relief funds, just giving us a little bit of information about what specific issues came up during the pandemic and how does the project that you're applying for help to address those issues. Okay, page 5 is this budget template. So in the PDF version, you can fill it in, fill the numbers in. You can also fill it in the doc version. But what we're looking for here is kind of a breakdown of both the income and expense for the project. So on this first line, you're going to put the total grant amount you're applying for. So that's going to be anywhere from 25 to 50,000. And there is no match required on these projects, as our other grants sometimes do have a match, but the project may generate revenue. So if the project is generating revenue through ads or vendor booths or sponsorships, you can estimate that here on the second line. And then the business district contribution is anything above and beyond what the grant is. How is your district going to cover that? Is that going to come out of the district's bank account? If you're applying for $50,000, but the project is $75,000, where's the remaining 25 coming from? You want to have a plan for that and make sure that that's clear, that those funds can be covered. The next lines here are for expenses. And in the PDF version, you can't change this, but in the doc version, you can. So feel free to adjust these lines to better fit the type of project that you're applying for. But you're just going to put in everything in here that is basically an expense related to the project. So this should end up totaling the amount that you have in your total income. You don't want to have more expenses than income, if that makes sense. And then you can also include at the very bottom of the budget in-kind contributions. So this would be any goods and services that are being donated towards the project, any discount that you might receive on a specific part of the project. You can put the value of that on this very last line next to in-kind contributions. Okay, and this very last page here is the timeline. So this is just going to kind of go from when the applications were released, which were last Monday, the 10th. And then it talks about staff being available for grant writing assistance. So that's the grant office hours. So that started this week, and that'll go all the way up until July 3rd. And then our office is going to be closed July 4th and July 5th. And then that following week is when we start with final draft review. So staff will be available to kind of look at completed applications at that point, make sure that there's nothing missing, that there's nothing unclear or inconsistent. So that'll be available all the way up until the day of the deadline. So the deadline is July 12th, and you can submit your application up until noon that day. But that whole week prior, I'll be available to take a look at things and make sure everything's looking good. So if you're interested in scheduling a time to talk about projects, for me to take a look at a draft application, just reach out to me via email at jacob@ventureportland.org. We can schedule a time to do it over the phone or via Zoom, whatever's easiest for you. And I can kind of give you just my 2 cents on how to make it more compelling, clearer, easier for the grants committee to understand. So after July 12th, I give all the applications to the grants committee members. They take some time to themselves to read and score them. They meet at the end of July, and then you should hear from me on August 1st, whether or not your district will be awarded the grant or not. At that point, I will send over a contract to the district if it was awarded a grant, and we will either mail you a check or we can directly deposit the funds into your account through our bookkeeper. And then just some other dates to kind of keep in mind in 2025, because the grants projects can't go any further than July. You'll want to make sure to keep the keep your timeline for submitting the grant evaluation and the receipts and everything. That must be done by August 1st. And then the last piece here is just some resources. So links to some of our partner organizations that might be helpful with providing some additional funding for your projects, providing technical assistance for what types of permitting you might need, and some other information around Portland Means Progress and the Portland Street Art Alliance and our Regional Arts Council. So it depends on what type of project you're applying for, but some of these resources might be helpful to you all. Okay, so that was a lot of information. And I want to make sure before we go any further to open the floor for any questions about the application itself. So the requirements, the guidelines, the questions. Was there anything that was people were wondering about? Yeah, Sarah.
Jacob, it's good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too. Welcome.
Thanks. I have a sort of specific eligibility question.
Yeah.
So there's a project that the community association might be wanting to work on in Old Town. And it's for a historic sign that we have in the district that is attached to a business though. So it's the oldest neon sign in Old Town, and it's the oldest Chinese restaurant in Portland, and their neon needs to be repaired, and it's pretty iconic. It's a giant outdoor sign. Would this work for something like that, even though it's attached to a business, but it is sort of a placemaker for Old Town?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it is public facing, I think it would be eligible. And definitely something that could be a compelling project since it is, so iconic and so visible. That would definitely be a great infrastructure project if you could, make the case about, the importance it has to the district, the history of the district, how visible it is as people are kind of walking through the district. So yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Neil.
I was just curious about the evolution of the focus of the grants. I think just in terms of like last year's focus being more on like, am I wrong? Like tourism, kind of inspiring kind of projects that brought notoriety to a district or neighborhood. And then the shift to this year being a little different. And then I will, because I think learning about the new focus of this funding cycle is causing our group to kind of need to shift what we were thinking. And so we'll probably offline communicate with you about that and get your feedback. But I just was curious about like, what you learned from last year, maybe what influenced the changes of what's going into the direction of the grants.
Yeah, so the only change to the kind of eligible projects list was the addition of the ability to hire DEI consultants. Otherwise, the language around the different district infrastructure and the livability and staffing is all the same. It's still very much tourism focused. We would, I think the grants committee is going to prioritize projects that are going to have the public facing, bring in not only tourism, but residents, just make a district more enjoyable to spend time in. That's still, I think, a huge focus there. But we wanted to offer some additional options because we had just kind of worked with our equity committee on, how can we incorporate that into these grants as well for districts that want to do something like that. But the kind of the prioritization is all three are equally considered. So, if you want to do something tourism focused, that's great. Livability, one can make the argument, is also tourism focused. A clean district is one that is going to kind of bring in more tourists. A safe district is going to bring in more tourists too. But really, we're looking for projects that make districts more inviting and accessible for everybody.
And Jacob, I think Tony had a question next, and then Alex. But Tony was kind of waving her hand.
Oh yeah, sorry, Tony, I didn't see you.
That's okay. It's a new version of Zoom and I couldn't find the little hand raise thing. So, hi, I'm with Raleigh Hills Business Association. We, 10 years ago, had a successful grant with you for signage in our neighborhood, and that was a lot of fun.
I remember, yeah, the banners.
That's right, the banners. So I have two practical questions. The first one is, I understand the application process, but I was wondering about supplemental information to submit with the application. 10 years ago, we didn't have anything electronic. We had maps and various diagrams and information from contractors, but this time we're looking at something that we need to send some possible reels or a pitch deck or something like that. So how do we make sure that both of those come together at the same time?
Yeah.
They're married in your process. So
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's always a great idea to include supplemental materials just to help the committee fully understand what you're doing and show that you've done your due diligence in making sure that it's a feasible project. And for, for photos, for cost estimates, for letters of support, those can all be attached to the main application PDF. So, your final application version should be in PDF format, and then you can attach all those pieces to the very end.
Okay.
If there's a video, you can definitely send that as a separate file, and I can just upload it. So everything gets uploaded to Google Drive.
okay.
So I can upload that to Google Drive and just kind of point them in the direction, make sure that the grants committee knows that the video is also a part of the application. That's probably easier than trying to, embed the video into the application itself.
Right.
Just have it as a separate file. Or if there's a link to a website,
Yeah,
that can totally go in the PDF, and
Okay.
that should easily, take them to, wherever the website is.
But I just want to add here that all of the supplemental materials are great, but it doesn't change the fact that the written words need to be in the grant.
Oh, yes, I understand.
Just to be really clear about it.
No, it's not.
Sometimes people are like, oh, we sent you a video instead of writing out what our project is. That doesn't suffice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
The narrative is definitely the most important
Yeah.
part, but once you've completed the narrative and you still feel that you could clarify a few things through
Right.
photos or through letters or other attachments, then that's fine too, but not
Okay.
required.
Thank you. And thanks for all the feedback on this.
Sure thing. Yeah. Alex, how are you?
Hey, Jake, good. How are you?
Good.
I might have missed this, but are we able to do a mixture of 3 of those categories in our grant application request, or is it we just pick one category?
Yeah, so a couple of the projects from last year did kind of combine things a little bit. So they did a infrastructure project, but maybe $5,000 went towards a consultant or a contractor to help to implement that project. So something like that would be fine. I think as long as it kind of meets the goal of the program, which is to, you know, create something that has a major impact. Yeah, you could combine a couple of the different categories into one if it makes sense.
But Jacob, isn't it accurate that the way it's written should be, we've chosen this category and this is what we're writing for, and it might touch into livability, let's say,
Right.
but it needs to look like you're applying for this category versus like, we're gonna apply for all of them. That's not gonna work.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to pick one. And then within the narrative, you can make it clear as, you know, we're applying for an infrastructure grant, but a portion of the funding will go to hire somebody to install whatever we're building or whatever. But yeah, pick one category, and you can only submit one application per district, which is another thing that kind of came up last year. We had, you know, multiple businesses submitting applications on behalf of one district. So you want to make sure everybody's on the same page, and yeah, just submitting one application with one category.
Mhm.
Yeah, Eliza, hi.
Hi, Elisa.
Elisa,
Oh.
sorry.
It's okay.
How you doing?
I have a good friend, Eliza, so it's not bad. Good, thanks. My question is kind of in line with Alex's too, not so much the different three grants, but the project I guess I'm thinking about is under the livability, but it's not really like one project that it has. It's a bunch of like smaller things to add up to like a livability grant. Is that, if that makes sense? Is that something that also, while it's not maybe one focused thing, it is a livability for the whole district that encompasses like regular cleanup and murals and stuff like that, but it's not just like one like mural project or something.
Yeah, well, you know, I think if you can make the case and a compelling argument that it's going to have a significant impact on the district, then I think that will still work. I think it's a harder case to make, saying, you know, by doing a bunch of little things, they're going to add up to, you know, having the effect of one big thing. But it's really district specific. You know your district better than anybody else. So if, you know, combining you know, a mural with a district cleanup with you know, a crosswalk is going to have you know, increase the overall safety of the district or address a specific problem that's happening in the district that's keeping people from visiting, then I think it's still valid.
And then livability, because the security services like was an example, like cleaning services, would that be like I want to outsource?
Yeah, definitely. So this could be trash and litter cleanup, graffiti cleanup, trash cans, so places for people to put their trash, really anything that kind of addresses the cleanliness of an area.
Thanks.
I think, Alyssa, the importance here is, like Jacob talked about earlier, people are going to be scoring, and think of those people as having no understanding of what's happening, right? So it's connecting the dots. So if you have several things under livability, how do you connect it in a narrative, right? That's the important part, because otherwise it does seem so divested that they may not be able to understand it. So it is that connection, like how do these four or five things all connect back to the subject, the category that you've chosen, and how does it impact your future? Not just like a cleanup for tomorrow, but how does cleaning up aid you for the future?
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that definitely speaks to, there's a specific question as to the long-term impact of the project. but also you want to address, the short term as well. So yeah, thinking about, things that are going to do both. What can you, achieve over the course of a year to have an immediate impact, and then how does that kind of lead into, more of an impact over the next several years. So another thing I wanted to do, and we still have time for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. But I wanted to share a successful project from the last cycle to kind of give you an idea of what that looked like and why it was successful. And I'm actually really glad that Sarah is here, because it's an Old Town project. And a lot of these projects are still in the works. They haven't been completed yet, but Old Town actually completed theirs early, which is, a success all in itself, worth celebrating. So I wanted to just share a video about that project and their application, and then maybe Sarah can give us some more background info on the whole thing. Okay, let's see.
The reason that we're all here is to celebrate what has become a pilot project for the city of Portland that started 3 years ago. That began the process of creating a project in Old Town that would become a pilot for the entire city.
So Old Town applied for their Chinese lantern project. And as you can see from the video, they strung up these lanterns throughout the district and had a big lighting ceremony for them with cultural entertainment. And the project was really compelling. It really helped to reinforce the district's identity. It was beautiful. It helped to improve safety in the district. It gave people something to be proud of, to come to the district and visit, to watch. And it was one of the 6 projects that were funded last year. And I have their application here. And if you can see that, they did a great job with the narrative, but I also wanted to point out some of their supplemental material, because that really showed that they had fully thought out this project, that the project was actually feasible and could be completed and completed on time. So you see here, they've included a permit application from PBOT to do the actual hanging of the lights, because this was kind of a pilot project for the city, because no other district had really gotten a permit to hang something across the street like that. So they didn't even know if it was possible, but they worked directly with PBOT, who said it was possible, and then they attached this document that showed that they had the prior approval from the district. They also included a estimate from a fabricator on how much it would cost to create and install these lanterns, as well as some great photos of the district itself, but also some examples of what other cities had done for similar projects. And this really helps to give the grants committee an idea of what to expect. If this is something that hasn't been done before in Portland and people don't really know how to visualize it, you got to really make it obvious to them what it could potentially look like, what you're thinking about. And that will help them really understand how it fits into your district. So they've included these great slides here and a map, of where specifically those are going to be hung. So people have just a really clear idea of what the project's going to look like when it's all done. And then at the very end is just a visualization of the timeline. So for folks they also, included in the narrative, just the bulleted list for the timeline, but this kind of helps to see what's overlapping and what's going to take the longest amount of time. Definitely something that's really helpful for people that are more visually oriented. So I wanted to ask Sarah if she had anything she could share about this project. What was learned, and how's it going so far? And
Sure, yeah.
anything you want to share?
Yeah, that was a really incredible project. It was about 2 years it took them to get to the point of being able to actually hang the lanterns, because the buildings in Old Town are historic, so they're protected. So being able to create the infrastructure to hold the lights, just even that was a huge hurdle. So anyway, fast forward to getting the funding to do that. It was just really, really exciting for the whole district. They're really placemaking, and I think that's important with these grants too. And also, additional awesome news is that we've secured additional grant funding through my organization to do 3 more blocks of those lanterns. So it was really like a successful pilot project. It really had a big impact on the community, and they had an architect who worked with them, Tom Clark, his name was on the application. He did a lot of that work that was so integral to putting together that application with the really specific detailed numbers and information. And I think that was really helpful for the community association to work with him, to have him on their team.
Yeah, working with Tom was really great. He was very communicative, very knowledgeable, very passionate. You could tell about getting things done. So it was great to have him as working on the project, and it was great to see the huge event that Old Town put on to unveil those lanterns. And I think that's a big piece that sometimes gets forgotten in these big projects, is remembering to celebrate your success and let everybody know about it. Because you spend all this time and all this money doing something, you want to make sure that people are aware of the hard work. And I think that you had some news coverage come out, which is always invaluable. It's actually the topic of our last webinar. So this is a great way to do it, is to send out a press release, organize an event, invite people to come and talk and celebrate, and take videos, take photos, put them up on your social media. Definitely capitalize on the finished product once it is done. Okay, so we have just a couple minutes left, and I want to just open the floor to anybody that wants to ask questions about the application, talk about potential projects that they're thinking about doing, ask any questions before we wrap it up for the day.
Jacob, I want to ask a quick question for people about the budget piece. So on the bottom, there's the in-kind donation section. Can people put in their volunteer hours in that section?
That's a great question. And yes, the answer is yes. In the past, we had not included that in our grant applications, but given the state of the pandemic, we kind of changed our requirements for our grants. So now, yeah, the time that your volunteers are spending, there is a dollar value associated with that. And I haven't looked at it recently. I think it was around $29 an hour or something. But that can be a great way to kind of show the full impact your project is having. You might not be spending $100,000 on a project, but you've got some great volunteers that are dedicating a lot of their time. So the value is actually close to $100,000 or whatever it might be. So definitely don't overlook that in-kind line. It's definitely helpful to show the grants committee the full impact of the project. Okay, any other questions, thoughts, comments? As I said, I am going to be available for the next several weeks to answer questions. So, feel free to reach out via email if you have questions, or if you want to schedule a time for grants office hours. Even if you don't have your application filled out, I can kind of just talk about potential project and how it might fit into this grants cycle. Yeah, Eleni.
Well, thank you for that. I've already scheduled time with you, so I'm looking forward to asking my very specific questions in that format. But in terms of just generally speaking, do the grants have to be for a specific dollar amount? So there's like the couple different levels. Do you have to hit that number? And it
just
may
has,
be for a various amount.
it has to be between 25,000 and 50,000.
Okay,
So
so
you
it
can
could,
ask for any amount between that, whatever it fits into your budget.
thank you. Okay, perfect.
Okay, any other questions? I can't see everybody, but feel free to chime in as we've just got a couple of minutes left. Otherwise, we'll get 5 minutes back in our day, and definitely start these conversations now with your board if you haven't already. The clock is ticking and you don't want to wait until the last minute. So
One last question, actually.
yeah, Christopher,
Can you hear me?
I can. Hi.
Yeah. Every district that's available to write an application would be present today, right? I'm not trying to make it competitive against each other, but if 6 went out last year, did everybody show up to this meeting, or is it any district that is currently still connected can put in an application? They didn't have to be present today, right?
Right. Yeah, this session was optional. So
Got it.
when we initially announced these grants last year, we did have a required session for any potential applicant that was interested. But because this session is optional, this doesn't reflect every district that could apply.
Got it.
So, and districts, if they're not members, they could still potentially join Venture Portland to apply. But the pool is probably somewhere in the realm of 20, 25 applicants. That's what we're expecting, but we never really know until the day of. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time, and certainly feel free to reach out if anything else comes up. And best of luck in your grant writing adventures. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Jacob. Thank you.